On behalf of our City Vice Mayor, it is a great honor for me to welcome all of you in this 123rd anniversary of the martyrdom of Dr. Jose Rizal. We are really delighted for having everyone this afternoon joining us in this afternoon's event to commemorate the life of Dr. Jose Rizal, a man we consider one of the greatest heroes of the Philippines. I'd like to extend a special welcome to the organizing team of this event, to the Department of Education, Schools Division of Bayawan City, and the Local Government Unit of Bayawan City, as well as to the interfaith community for the spiritual service a while ago. I'd like also to acknowledge the distinguished persons for without whom this memorable event will not be made possible. To our City Mayor, Honorable Pride Henry Teves, to our City Vice Mayor, Honorable Ismael Martinez, to my colleagues in the City Council, to the Department of Education, Schools Division of Bayawan City, headed by Dr. Lilanay Cabrera, to all the school principals, school heads, supervisors, administrators, teachers, staff, students, to the respected members of the interfaith community, to the representatives from the different private sectors, organizations, associations, to our Philippine National Police and other representatives of the national agencies, to our honorable war veterans, to the LGU department heads, government employees, visitors, and fellow Bayawanos. Thank you very much for your presence this afternoon, as your splendid support speaks about how we, the Bayawanos, are one and united in keeping the lofty ideals and teaching of our national hero to stay alive in our hearts and minds. Dr. Jose Rizal once said, ang hindi marunong lumingon sa pinanggagalingan ay hindi makakarating sa paroroonan. He who does not know how to look back at where he came from will never get to his destination. May these words of Dr. Jose Rizal remind everyone, especially the youth, to fully recognize the value of historical events, especially the martyrdom of Jose Rizal, which shaped the nation and constituted the soul of the people, giving the meaning of our collective life aspirations. As Bayawan City moves forward for greater heights in the years to come, may this commemorative event of Rizal Day always reminds us to be united, and so that we will exemplify and practice the values, the virtues of love of God, the courage during adversity, and the noble conduct in every Bayawanan. And may we continually instill the lessons of nationalism, civic consciousness, and also about the importance of education for all the Filipino youth of the day. Again, welcome to everyone. Good afternoon, Ibaya Bayawan.
Anyways, today we honor the greatest Filipino who ever lived, my idol, Dr. Jose Rizal. The question always remains, especially to those who did not study deeply on why Rizal deserves to be our national hero. They say, why Rizal? Why not Bonifacio? Why Rizal, who never wanted independence but pushed for assimilation, or the Philippines becoming a province of Spain, while Bonifacio was shouting for independence? Yes, all those things are true. But you must remember, Rizal was a spark plug who who awakened all our other leaders on the idea of the Filipino getting independent or getting equal with other races of this world. Rizal studies in Europe on the French Revolution, on the American Revolution, and on the other books of other scholars enabled him to write propaganda, to write wonderful novels that awakened the all other heroes of this country who pushed for our right to be free. Why assimilation? If they say Rizal never pushed for independence, that is wrong. What Rizal said was, we cannot push for independence now because while you want violence or revolution, we do not have enough arms to do it. And if ever by God's grace you will be victorious, our country it's not ready to be free at that time. Rizal said, at this time, 95% of the Filipinos are illiterate. There are no roads, there are no schools, there are no hospitals. How do you run a country who 95% is illiterate? So Rizal said, let us be a province of Spain. Let Spain build the roads. Let Spain build the hospitals. Let Spain build the schools. And let education be for all. After 10 to 15 years, when our children become educated and are ready and have the ideas of what democracy means, then for sure they would push for independence at all costs and deserve nothing less. That is why Rizal at that time pushed for assimilation rather than independence. Another thing is, Rizal was respected by all the other leaders. In fact, before Bonifacio even raised hell in Luneta or in the sigaw ng Pugadlawin, he sent an emissary to ask for Rizal's blessings because he already was too desperate and too frustrated with the system. Everybody looked up to Rizal as the inspiration for the said push for independence. The greatest Filipino, testament to that, in any part of this world, you see monuments of Rizal. In Hong Kong, in Florida, in Paris, in Germany, in Japan, in Singapore, in Madrid, where I personally saw it. In Madrid, if you go to the richest neighborhood comparable to Forbes Park, where the biggest and richest Spanish people live, the entrance to that village is what you call Avenida Rizal. And before you enter that community, there's a big monument to our national hero. Ironic, killed by the Spanish, but venerated by the Spanish and the whole world for his ideas and love for his country. I do not call Rizal the greatest national hero. I call him the greatest Filipino who ever lived. The social cancer that he has exposed in Olmetangere and El Fili is something that we must always reminisce and check so that we can rectify whatever social cancers there is still left up to now. Roads, corruption, education, health systems, and what have you. And every time we celebrate something like this, when I start to hear the nationalistic songs and the Lupang Hinirang, especially when it's sung passionately, it sends shiver down my spine and lets me remember, Mayor, you took your oath, country above self and above all else. And that is what all of you, fellow public servants, must always remember. Mabuhay ka, Dr. Rizal, ibayaw ang bayawan.
The 30th of December invokes in us an ambivalent feeling because it falls between the post-Christmas celebration and the pre-New Year's Eve festivity. If we could have our way, we want to stay at home, the comfort of our homes, and the warmth of familial presence. But alas, we are here to celebrate the life and heroism of Dr. Jose Rizal, the gift of family, and the Filipino way of celebrating Christmas can be appreciated, however, in the light of what Rizal did to the country. The notes that I'm going to share with you this afternoon is just an addition to what has been spoken about Dr. Jose Rizal today. The martyrdom of Jose Rizal shaped the Filipino nation and constituted the soul of the people. It may be said that Rizal's challenge to the Filipinos then inspired in the collective body a sense of nationhood, a belonging to a race, belonging to a people. The Spanish colonization as well as other colonizations really proved to be very oppressive experience for the Filipino people. Such ordeal has been made Rizal and his compatriots desire for something better, to strive for freedom. Freedom for Rizal was freedom from oppression, injustice, and corruption. These Filipino desires were not for individual upliftment or glory. They became collective aspirations of every Filipino for each Filipino. Hence the propaganda movement, the revolution, and the heroism changed the tide of history to favor the poor and the oppressed. Let me take note here that while it was true that Rizal and the other propagandists may be at a disadvantage compared to the insulares, the full-blooded Spaniards born in the colonies, who happened to be a part of the second highest racial class in the Spanish hierarchy, just below the peninsulares. The full-blooded Spaniards were born in Europe. It was equally true as well that compared to other Filipinos, they were more at an advantage as they were schooled in Europe, a privilege that could not be enjoyed by the other Indios. In fact, the term Filipino was not for all citizens of the Philippines, and yet the privileged position that Rizal and his compatriots occupy have made them more sensitive to the needs of the less fortunate Filipinos. Apart from heroism, Rizal and his compatriots have given us a subtle message that if we were given more, we ought to do more. This is not wholly original of Rizal and the propagandists. In fact, this call is heard in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verse 28. To whom much is given, much will be required. Because Rizal was an intelligent, creative, and much sensitive Filipino, it had to be his life that was offered to the movement for freedom. The martyrdom of Rizal and the others reminds us that we are held responsible for what we have been given. Rizal had the intelligence, the heart, and the courage. Hence, these are put to the benefit of others. The same call is upon us today. Kita tanan, gitawag, para moalagad wholeheartedly to the nation. each one of us, each one of the government officials, each one of the local government unit officials, each teacher, kita tanan diha, we are called to do our task wholeheartedly and honestly. Teachers, we do not teach reading, writing, and arithmetic only, but we teach those that matters most, the values, honesty, integrity, commitment, obedience, and many others. The call remains the same as it has been for the longest time. The call to do good for the good of the country. Rizal's chief aim was to reform Philippine society and inspire young people to act. To do this was to combat the ills of society. In Rizal's time, they had to expose abuses and corruption of the colonial government, and even turn the critical eye inward and explore the failings of the Filipino people themselves. We hear his admonitions in words as the indolences of the Filipinos and message to the women of Malolos. Rizal was the quintessential citizen who believed in reform through education. Let it be noted that the education Rizal and his compatriots yearned for was foreign education, not because their minds and sensibilities were steeped in colonial ideals. It was not colonial mentality that drove them to secure education in Europe. It was freedom that drove them to secure themselves foreign instruction. Europe buzzed with progressive ideas. It was there that freedom and liberal tenets were discussed and encouraged openly. Had they stayed in the Philippines, they would have been under the tutelage of friars whose intentions were to suppress any or all forms of freedoms. Rizal believed in education to be the key to awakening and hence reform. To educate the young people was as good as liberating them. This still holds true today. Our education is not only a great leveler among us, it is also a chain breaker. It breaks the shackles of poverty and ignorance. And this is the reason why every tyrant in the world fears education. When people are educated, they know what is just, what is actionable, what must be done, and what must be righted. Rizal's challenge remains the same today. Serve the country. This call has never been so urgent, especially in the light of the mass movements of Filipinos to work abroad or settle elsewhere, leaving the country for good. And that is our experience now. Many or several of our teachers have gone abroad to teach to the different parts of the world, to the United States. There are teachers who have gone to Vietnam, to Japan to teach English. And who can blame them? And yet it would be lovely, not to mention progressive, if we can enjoy the things that we desire for our families and fellow Filipinos and enjoy them here in our homeland. And this is where courage comes in. The courage to remain in this place, the courage to remain in Bayawan and to enjoy what we have in Bayawan, the courage to hope that this country can achieve what other progressive countries have achieved. We must have the courage to believe that serving the country wholeheartedly will benefit every Filipino. We must have the courage to face the new year with great aspirations for the Filipino people. We must be like Rizal, who gave nothing less than his life for this country. I mentioned earlier that this date invokes in me ambivalent feelings because it is sandwiched between post-Christmas celebration and pre-New Year's Eve festivity. I no longer feel it now. I am grateful for Dr. Jose Rizal's heroism and martyrdom. For Christmas, New Year, and all other festivities have become more meaningful because they are enjoyed freely. Mayong Pasko o mabungahong bagong tuig kanatong tanan.
Bio 1, 19 years of rebirth. It all begins in this river. She crisscrosses 10 barangays, finds her quiet repose among the fishing boats near and under the bridge. Then finally, she flows, merges, and becomes one in soul with the waiting Sulu Sea. This river gives her sustenance to Tulong Nuevo through the centuries and provides promise to those whose dear lives have depended on her abundance. She breathes and communicates her communal spirit, giving generously of water for drinking, survival, and agriculture. Her fertility benefits the hungry masses. With its abundant fish, her fertile soil does well to biodiversity, and her fluidity to ease off transportation. Yeah, even the first great civilizations of ancient Near East all stood up in river valleys. Hidden from the mortal eye, this river has heard so many stories of past triumphs, heartaches, and the struggles of a once impoverished but promising young town in the southern hill of Negros Oriental, Bio 1. Now, year 2019 is about to end, and this is a time for reflection. We have gone back to this river, the focal point of our annual pilgrimages. On her waters, we mark our rebirth. On her waters, we now remember the travails and struggles of the last 19 years of Bio 1 cityhood. What have happened? So where are we now? The times are changing, and so is the ocean tide, and this river too. Entering into the 20th year of our cityhood, if there is a reason why we are where we are, it comes from where we have been. We inherited a previous generation's hand-me-downs and took in the seams, turned up the hems to make our new fashions. Now, in this turning point day, before the year 2020, a new moon is rising. we light our lanterns right in this river, this cosmic giver of light and energy to all of life, to symbolize our homage to God for the last 19 years of prosperity, of our dream to disperse the most profound darkness, of weary beginnings and the removal of our obstacles to love, of the victory of good over evil and knowledge over ignorance, of 1,000 joyful summer harvests, of gifts we have shared despite our scarcity, of homecomings and reconciliation of families and communities, of renewals of unfulfilled promises, of freeing our own personal and imagined prisoners, of paying respect to our ancestors, of rededicating our altars, temples, and not so holy vessels, of healing our hurts and deep-seated scars, of the wonders of losing and finding true love in the most unexpected places, of the redemptions and the unnecessary battles we have made, of encouraging our children to imbibe as much life as possible, and of praising God's great name for the miracle and wonder of Christmas. Now, in this rite of passage, we write our petitions and words of gratitude to the divine. We scribble the yearnings of our souls for the sake of the hope of Bayang One. We pen our promises and resolutions for the future. Then, we light our lanterns, our candles, like floating lotuses, emanating the strength of our collective and diverse solidarity, our need for each other's charisms, our faith in God's almighty hand guiding our city in the right course of its history. It is better to light just one little candle than to stumble in the dark. Let the river vary all these urgings of our hearts, for Bayang One, we can do small things with great love. Let there be light.